Credo Voices, the podcast where we bring you inspiring stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I'm your host, Awele Okibo, the CEO of Credo Advisory.
Childhood is often imagined as a time of innocence and joy, but the reality is much different for millions of young people worldwide. Picture a young child, weighed down by anxiety or sadness, struggling to find their voice in a world that doesn't seem to notice. The World Health Organization reports that 1 in 7 10 to 19-year-olds experiences a mental disorder, accounting for 15% of the global disease burden in this age group. In our pilot episode for Credo Voices Season 2, we take you to Kenya to meet Cherrelle Druppers, co-founder of the ChezaCheza Dance Foundation. Through dance, ChezaCheza helps children in underserved communities reclaim their joy and build emotional resilience. By fostering healing, they are advancing SDG 3, good health and well-being. Join us as we explore dance's transformative power and its role in creating healthier, more equitable futures for young people.
My name is Cherrelle. I'm originally from the Netherlands, but have been living in Kenya for the last 8 years. And together with my co-founder, Francis Odhiambo, I run a very special organization called ChezaCheza.
Interesting. ChezaCheza. Cherrelle, what does that mean and in what language?
It means playful, or it can mean play, because it's Cheza and Cheza, which means play. But informally, people would use it to say dance. So it means playful and it means dance at the same time in Swahili. And basically, dance and fun is what we're all about. I would say that our superpower is to use dance to support the well-being of children that we work with around Kenya, mainly in marginalized communities and slum areas. And we do this by finding very talented youth, and we train them in our dance curriculum. And this is how they create a local dance program.
That's really interesting. But Cherrelle, why dance? I mean, there are different forms of, artistic expression. You come from a dance background. Do you feel it's something that's more cultural? Can you just share a little bit about why did you choose dance?
Yeah, great question. I think there's, of course, a science to how the brain works on dance. And there's a lot of studies now coming out on what dance can do for the brain. But I think, honestly, for me, it comes from my childhood. I've always danced my entire life. And I found deep connection because I was able to express myself fully through dance, through the highs and through the lows. And dance was always there. And I think also dance is something that connected to me and my co-founder together. And although we're from very different backgrounds, and he's from Kenya and he grew up in Kibera, one of the largest slums in East Africa, we met 6 years ago, and we met at a dance event. We were seated next to each other, and he invited me to come to one of his dance classes that he was organizing for the kids. And he said that, he started to dance for the children in his community because dance saved his life. He was chased away from home when he was very young, 13 or 14, didn't choose the right path. And at some point, he needed to turn his life around. And dance is what gave him the ability to express how he felt, to heal, and to process all of the things that he encountered in life. And I think this is what connected us, and this is why he started this class for kids in his community. And the moment I came to his class, there was music being put on, and the children started dancing. There was so much joy, so much happiness. Yeah, that moment changed my life. And I knew then and there, dance has the ability to change lives. I know the power of dance. I studied education, international development, and I thought in that moment, me and Franco, we need to do something. So dance, I think, is a very healing medium for a lot of children, for a lot of adults. It, helps you to express your emotions. It can help you to process your feelings. It's a way to connect, to communicate. I can go on and on about how beautiful dance is, but I think what you mentioned as well is the cultural aspect. When you come to Kenya and maybe also where you are, if you put on dance, the body starts moving.
Even before you realize it's moving.
Yeah, and we thought, this is the one thing that connects kids and makes them engaged and makes them joyful. Why not use this more purposefully to support them in how they feel, how they learn, how they are in life.
That's absolutely remarkable. I want us to do a deep dive, Cherrelle. So take us to, how does your organization, ChezaCheza, how does it actually develop a program around dance? Walk us through the operations. So do you have a physical location in Kenya? How many students do you have? We just kind of want to look inward into your organization and just tell us exactly what it is you do using this incredible medium as a form of expression, a tool for healing, and so on.
Yeah, so dance is not the outcome, we would say. So dance is never the goal at ChezaCheza, but it's, like you said, the medium or the tool of how we create change. And what we start with is a curriculum. So we developed a curriculum that combines a psychotherapy called dance movement therapy. We combine social emotional learning and mindfulness meditation. And we combine this in a curriculum of 3 modules. And each module takes the child through exercises with dance that make them understand how they feel, work on their self-esteem. In module 2, we work more on how to interact with others. And then in the last module, we look at how can you creatively think, how can you show up, and how can you take action for your life. So it starts with this curriculum. But what we found was if we just started dance school, then we miss out reaching so many children because they don't have the ability to travel. They are not able to reach us. So we thought about, how do we create access? And our access is being created through youth. So Franco, my co-founder, is one of those incredible youths. And we thought it's so important that kids feel safe with somebody that looks like them, talks like them, and have the same experiences as them. So we go into communities and we find talented youth that can dance and that want to create social change. And they apply to get training from ChezaCheza. And we train them in our curriculum. We train them on psychological first aid. We train them in counseling skills, and they get funding to basically start a ChezaCheza program. And this makes it very localized, and it also makes the curriculum being adapted to different circumstances. We are not from certain communities. We don't know what the issues and the challenges are, but the teachers there know they're from there. So they can relate to the kids and use the concepts in the curriculum to support the children. And that started with just 3 youths. Now that's 17 dance locations across Nairobi. And then we found that we can also train people on a distance. So there's Kakuma refugee camp in the north of Kenya. And we have trained some youth there as well to start our program. So it's spreading, and about 2,500 children are dancing every week with ChezaCheza.
Cherrelle, you've given me a lot to unpack, and I'm just in awe right now. So first of all, I love that it's youth-led. I love that. This is really critical for sustainability, for authenticity, for so many reasons. Let's just focus now on the fact that you're able to find these young men and women who are passionate about dance, and you now provide them with the support and you facilitate them creating their own dance groups within their communities, right?
Yes.
Let's say they go into a community. Let's say, just, hypothetically, you have Agatha, who has gone through your program. You've enabled her to be able to take those skills to go back to her community. How do you prepare Agatha to engage with parents, community leaders, even the students themselves or the young people in her community? How do you enable her to be able to convince her peers and younger children to join? I would expect there's there's social norms that she would have to contend with. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Definitely. We started this program maybe a bit naively thinking dance is this wonderful medium, like you said, that's accepted as part of the culture. So nobody would go against us. But that has not completely been the story. So the difficulty is that dance as a form of art is very underappreciated. It's oftentimes linked to if my child dances, they might go to the club. So that has been very, very challenging to convince parents and to convince local leaders that they should support our program. So it takes a lot of effort in terms of outreach. And this is also what we support with. We don't just, for example, give Agatha training and then say, here you can start ChezaCheza. We support with community outreach. We do home visit with the parents to understand where does this child come from? What are the issues in this family? We have a counseling team. We make sure that before we go into any community, we do outreach and we map the community to see, are they ready for our program? So we just don't go into any community with a blank slate. So this is what, of course, we've learned over the years. This is learning by doing and definitely not something that we just knew beforehand. And I think why we are around and why we are growing is that the parents really see the change in behavior of their children. And because they see, hey, my child is communicating more calmly. My child is doing better in school. My child is actually taking up their chores without, fighting or talking back to me. We see that the parents notice these differences and therefore they are supportive, but that definitely takes time.
So I'm hearing you equip them with the tools. You are going into the communities to really understand through a lot of advocacy and really communicating the impact. So the parents and communities are able to see the impact and the improvements in the kids. I definitely wanted to mention when you talked about having to convince. So I'm Nigerian, and I'm sure you understand in Africa there's a fixation on education, on formal education. And if you don't have multiple degrees by a certain age, or you're not a doctor or a lawyer, an engineer, anything outside of those very traditional career path is, there's a cultural diminishing of anything in the arts. So I can only imagine the battles and the resistance you would have to face. So certainly, that's very much appreciated, and I love that you're able to highlight the good and the impact, and parents are able to see the value in that. Now, we talked about your your dance leaders. I don't know what you call them, like the youth leaders or the ChezaCheza kind of dance advocates. Let's go into the community now. So Agatha, for instance, goes into a community and there's a lot of advocacy. You're talking to youth leaders, talking to parents. Can we talk a little bit about the kids? How do you determine who gets trained? How does Agatha find her 10 or 15 students?
So when we start the outreach, children can sign up for the program. So we start with usually a smaller group of kids when Agatha would start her classes. But we found that because of the music and because of the way children feel in the program, they start telling their friends. So we do an initial intake with certain children. Some show up, some don't, but it's basically free for all children to come. We do have an age range, which is 10 to 18, because we see that with younger kids, it's a bit more difficult to explain certain concepts that we're talking about or dancing about.
Yeah, that's fine. So if you're going to the community and she's engaging with parents, you have a demographic of her target. So Agatha is targeting kids from age 10 to, I think you said, what age? 17, 18?
To 17, 18 years old. So they come to the class. We separate them in juniors 10 to 13 in a senior class. So Agatha would do 2 classes on a Saturday afternoon in her community. And we see that a lot of kids start coming because they're like, okay, what is this music happening here? What is this activity that's going on? And then at a certain point, the children also will have their friends come over to ChezaCheza. And this is how the program in an organic way starts growing. Because honestly, what's difficult, what you mentioned with the parents, is that we're not giving anything physical to the children. So we are not saying we're giving them scholarships, we're giving them school bags or shoes. What the kids get is something very...
They get an experience.
They get an experience, and we support them in their development, and they get certain skills that support them in life. However, that's a very quote unquote vague story for parents. But I think this is also a testament to what we do, because the children come, they keep coming. And to us, children know when something feels right. And again, they don't get school books, they don't get shoes, but they get something out of ChezaCheza, and that's why they keep coming back. And for some children, they say, it's my happy place. For some children, it's the place that they see their friends. And for some, it's really a way for them to escape home or the community, because they want to feel safe. And this is the only place that provides that.
Oh, wow.
So
ChezaCheza's work goes beyond teaching dance. It creates safe spaces for self-expression and emotional growth, from the energizing beats that move young hearts to the quiet moments of self-discovery. Cherrelle shares the stories of refugee children finding belonging, the struggles of earning parental trust, and the Foundation's vision for scaling its impact while staying true to its community roots.
So going back to the community, these are underserved communities. These are communities that are impoverished. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Agatha it's her community. These are her people. These are her relatives. These are the people she grew up with. Am I correct?
Yeah. So she knows the community. She knows what's happening. And this is also, I think, an important story to tell, because there's a lot of terms or terminology when we talk about, like you said, underserved communities, poor communities, slum areas. But all of these communities have their own identity and their own struggles in a way. We have communities where there's more drug abuse. We have communities where there's more violence. And this does ask for a different approach of how we engage with the kids and why the kids are joining our program. And I think the teachers actually really understand that dynamic, and this is why we listen to them, and this is how the program can be adapted to their community. So, it's not to say like, oh, this is a slum area, we come in and this is how it goes, and really understand what is the dynamic going on here and why is the community facing these issues, and therefore these children might need a different approach in class. So I do think it's good to put it out there that, one community is not another community, and we really see the difference in that, in our work.
Cherrelle, I can imagine. Now, going back to the communities, can you just clarify something? So Agatha goes in, she is able to have like maybe 20 of these young kids who are excited, they're coming regularly. This is during the weekend. This is not impact school. This is something, the classes they have over the weekend. Does she try and engage with the schools to see if this can be incorporated in the school day or the curriculum, or this is something that you have designed to be completely separate and not necessarily in partnership with the local schools?
Yeah, so we have 2 programs. So the program that we're talking about now is the community program. So we call this the program with the deep roots, deep impact. We really want to be established in that community, form strong relationship with the parents, with the leadership, with the wider community, and really have that teacher that's from there focused on the kids from that community. And on the other side, we have a schools program called Happy Schools. And this is where these teachers like Agatha go into schools with our program, but not always from that community. Because not all schools are open to dance. Not all schools have the interest to do this, but we do have about 40 to 50 schools in our network where we also provide additional support for the teachers to go into these schools and provide the ChezaCheza program there. And this is also how they earn a little bit of additional income. So we do have the community, but we also see that, children don't just go to the community, but they also go to school. So we want to reach children in different demographics. We also are in schools. Yeah.
That's great. So I'd like to now look at the perspective of the parent. You earlier talked about the impact, behavioral changes, improvements in some of the children in their chores and schoolwork. I'd like to unpack that a little bit, and let's really focus on those improvements. So if we're talking to a mother who has had her child, her son or daughter, part of ChezaCheza, they've been going. So in a community that has maybe, heavy drug use or very low literacy, can you share a little bit about what will the mothers say about the impact and the changes that they are seeing in their children because they are participants in the ChezaCheza program?
Yeah, wonderful question. It depends, of course, on the child and where they were and how they progressed. But I do think that a lot of parents, they have a hard life. They're very busy. They're trying to provide for their children. They're not always home, so they don't know if their child is always safe. And the child really has to be part of of the household. So a lot of our kids sometimes come late to school because they have to watch their siblings. They have to do chores in the house or, work for the family as well. And we see that, children have a lot of frustration that they can't manage, which then goes into sometimes drug abuse. We also see teen pregnancies happening. They're out late on the streets without communicating. And some of the mothers have said that their children are more communicative. So when they feel something or when something is happening in their life, they will tell now their mother of, what's actually happening in life. So there's a conversation that they can have. We've had mothers that said, my oldest child would usually hit the younger siblings because this is the way that in some communities or some families, discipline is being taught. And one of our children said, I learned from the breathing techniques to calm myself down and not hit my siblings and ask for help from my mother instead of acting out.
Yeah.
So we see, healthier coping mechanisms, and this supports the family because the kids they're not out on the streets. They're not using drugs. They come home on time. They are more communicative, and this supports just a level of, calmness, safety within the family. Yeah.
This is so impressive. I'm sure you're aware of Africa's youth bulge. Africa is the youngest continent. It's really projected to be leading global population, and our ability to equip our children with the right tools for success, irrespective of their beginnings, of their socioeconomic status, is critical. And then what I'm hearing about ChezaCheza, you guys are really at the heart of it, kind of catching them young, but particularly targeting those underserved communities that are so often forgotten. It's quite remarkable. Now, I was having a look at your 2023 annual report, which is amazing, by the way. And you started off with 22 students, and you're now over almost 2,000.
Yeah.
How large is your team, first of all? And secondly, how do you scale and still retain the ChezaCheza ethos, that vision, the DNA? How do you do that?
I think we're at a point this year where we want two things. One, we want to reach scale, and we want to reach as many kids as possible with what we do. But on the other hand, we don't want to lose those strong community ties and the deep impact that we have. So we're really at a crossroads now. And we decided, you don't have to do one or the other. You can have two different programs working in different ways. So One, we have now about a team of 40, mainly dance educators, how we like to call our teachers. And we want to focus on making our community program still a community program that doesn't really scale. So we will expand, but we won't scale because we feel like that might lose the community touch. But what we do want to do is, this is the vision, of course, is with our Happy Schools program, we really want to focus on how can we train teachers in schools that are already teaching on some ChezaCheza methods so that social emotional learning, integrating dance activities into the classroom can be part of everyday learning. And our mission is really to figure out how do we get a spot in the national curriculum in Kenya, because Kenya just shifted to a competency-based curriculum.
Oh.
So it's a lot about values, a lot about competencies, and all the skills that we have in our curriculum are really focused on this and can really support the learner. So we're thinking, how can dance and our approach have a spot in the national curriculum and therefore reach as many children as possible, but then through the channel of schools while still working on our deep community work.
Cherrelle, thank you. Now, we started off with Agatha, who's your dance leader. We've talked about the mothers or a parent from the parent perspective. I'd like us to spend a little more time on the child. So, ChezaCheza is focused around creating a safe space for children in these communities. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience working with refugee children in these communities that are displaced? That has to be a completely different experience with its own challenges and whatnot. So can you tell me from the child's perspective, how do you convince a refugee, a child who does not have a home, who's dealing with a lot of psychological, mental, physical challenges because of their situation? How does ChezaCheza address this and still kind of create a program for dance to heal?
Yeah, ChezaCheza started so organically that we've also grown organically. We initially never thought we would be working with refugee children, but last year this opportunity came up where we were approached and an organization said, we really want to work with your program. And we said, that's great, but we don't have any physical presence there. So we worked out a training program where we would go to Kakuma refugee camp and do the same thing as we do here in Nairobi. We find the right teachers, we train them, we find the safe spaces, and they are the ones who, adapt the curriculum to their context. So what we see there is that safe spaces are very important, but a sense of belonging is very, very important. And I think this is one thing that ChezaCheza brings, a weekly spot where the kids can come, where they feel like they belong somewhere. Again, the dance brings happiness and joy. And I think we forget education or just in regular life, the kids just want to play and have fun. And this is very important. This should not be something that, is something that you have to pay for. You have to be privileged to experience this. Happiness and joy are here, and they can be so good for the brain, for the body, and just for healing. That's what the program really brings. There's a lack of hope sometimes, and especially for the youth. So the dance educators that we train, there's a sense of ownership because, these large organizations, they provide food, they provide education, but a lot of people feel like, okay, we get these services, but what do we bring to the community? So I think that's also very important, especially in the refugee setting.
I would love to find out about inclusivity, access. How do you ensure that while you're creating a safe space, you are creating a safe space for all? Children with disability, children from different ethnicities, children of, gender. Can you share a little bit around how you navigate that?
So our programs are open to all children, and especially in terms of gender and ethnic backgrounds. I think we're very inclusive because we're in communities where all children are around and they're just attracted to the program. And boys and girls can both dance equally well. And no matter your background or like your level of literacy, you can dance. But we do see that, reaching children with disabilities is definitely more challenging. And this is one thing that we are thinking about on how to reach those children. We had a really cool program with deaf children who can actually feel the beat of the music and can dance extremely well. But we have just not had the capacity to understand who is the best teacher for this and how can we train them, because we don't have anybody on our team who is, for example, disabled or deaf. Well, this is something, it's like we are inclusive, but our inclusivity can definitely grow. And we see a space there that children with disabilities can actually dance. Like even if they can be part, definitely. So we do see a huge opportunity there.
Now, do you find more enthusiasm from girls or boys, or is it mixed?
It's definitely mixed. We do have more girls in the program, so I would say 60 to 70% are girls. But what we do find from the data that we collect, so we focus on what is the emotional and behavioral progress of the children, we do see that the program has a bigger effect on boys. Yeah, emotional problems, hyperactivity, those things start to decrease when they start the ChezaCheza program more significantly than for girls. And we believe that that could be a cultural thing, that girls maybe are a bit more connected to their emotions, that there's maybe a bit more space for them to express that, and that for boys there's not. And them having this space actually opens this up for them to explore. So we do see that difference. So although more girls attend, the impact is bigger on boys.
And so what kind of support are you looking to get to grow, to be more inclusive, to be able to really drive more impact in these communities?
Well, apart from funding, because that's always the typical story, but we found that over the years, the things that have worked for us are partnerships and people that believe in what you do and see the worth. So, year one, you just exist and you knock on every door. And now we see that people who understand what we do and see the value of dance when they work with children. So there's a lot of organizations working with children in education, working with children with disabilities, more boy-focused or girl-focused programs. If they see the worth and the value of what dance can bring, then we want to work with you and we want to bring ChezaCheza into your organization, into your approach, and then we can work together to reach more children with what we do. So I just want to reach out to like-minded people who just understand what we're trying to do here.
That's incredible. Thank you, Cherrelle. Thank you so much for sharing this incredible work. Thank you for all you're doing for these children. I'd love to be able to check back in on you guys, maybe sometime next year. And, in the meantime, please stay the course. More grease to your elbows. And thanks for sharing.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate the opportunity to share more, because when people hear dance, they don't always understand the impact of our work and what we could really achieve. And luckily, we've been around for 6 years and we've built a reputation around this. But I think it's wonderful to have such an opportunity. So thank you for this.
As we conclude our conversation with Cherrelle, one thing is clear. The ripple effects of ChezaCheza's work are profound. Through dance, they're offering children more than choreography. They're providing a lifeline that blends movement therapy, social-emotional learning, and mindfulness. Today, ChezaCheza reaches over 2,500 children weekly through schools and community programs, proving that grassroots initiatives can create monumental change. Cherrelle's commitment to inclusivity ensures that every child feels seen and supported, regardless of background or ability. We invite you to learn more about ChezaCheza and its work empowering children through dance. Together, we can champion initiatives that nurture children's well-being and build a brighter future for the next generation.
Thank you for listening. Until next time, stay curious and keep believing in the power of your voice. This is Awele Okibo, signing off for Credo Voices.